And it's the same as last time. Welcome to the meeting.
Pretty much, yeah.
Do I say welcome to the meeting? The time is 6:01. Is anybody taking minutes?
We take.
Oh, there you are. Are you taking minutes? So is Ginger going? Ginger, will you call roll?
Sure. Committee member Kellogg.
Present.
Committee member Lee.
Present.
Committee member Pruitt. Chair Brinkerhoff.
Here. So should we just continue on to the meeting then?
I can go ahead and read how participants can participate, even though there aren't any attendees.
But it's good for posterity. As someone looks in the future, they'll know what to do the next time.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Viewers are welcome to provide public comment online through Zoom or by telephone at 669-900-9128. And the meeting ID is 915-836-95781#. If you are watching the meeting on Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please select the raise hand feature either on the bottom of your screen or through the participants icon. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide public comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified that the host is inviting you to participate. You will need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments.
Well done.
Thanks, Jinder. And did Jinder call the roll already?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Are there any agenda amendments?
No.
Well, I think, but maybe this can just be added at the bottom under matters before the committee. Do I have to tell you now what I think? Yes.
I would say so.
Okay. Well, under matters before the committee, it's the review of fiscal year 2020-21. First quarter annual review. I think we need to have some comment about the fiscal year that ended, even though, because normally this is the time we would be thinking about putting together a report, which may probably just be a few paragraphs with very little numbers. Okay, so that's what I think we need to add to the bottom. Okay, is that okay? You hear me?
Yes. Maybe that can be part of the discussion of the item.
Well, we're just going over anything to add to the agenda. So I was adding that towards the end.
I believe it's amendments to the agenda. We couldn't really add a whole nother item, but we can discuss that related to the item we have.
Which is this year's.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we move to the minutes? Now, did anybody else see the error in the minutes?
I don't have any comments on the minutes.
Did you look at them?
Yes, I did.
Did you look at the bottom of the first page?
Well, obviously you have something I missed.
It has one of the wrong members listed.
Oh, yeah, I forgot, Lomnescu or some Greek name.
Nebresco.
Lombresco. It's got one of our board of trustees listed instead of the partial tax member.
That would be me.
I saw that, but I thought maybe you slid him in without us knowing
Changing
it.
my name and getting out and putting him in.
We wouldn't do that to Phyllis.
Why not? So we're just changed Nebresco to Brinkerhoff.
Are there any other corrections?
Not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody move to accept the minutes as amended?
Sure, I'll move. We accept the minutes with the modifications noted.
Okay.
So Phyllis, you moved and Peter seconded?
Okay, I can move. Okay, I move, he seconds. Okay,
Okay.
minutes accepted as amended.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call on each member. Committee member Kellogg,
I approve.
committee member Lee,
Approve.
committee member Pruitt, Chair Brinkerhoff,
Okay. So do we have to wait for open comment? No. Okay, so I guess we're ready for the matters before the committee then. So Henry?
So gender is confirmed that there's no members of the public, and so we're moving past public comment.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the review of fiscal year 2021 first quarter annual revenue expenditure budget report. I will be giving the presentation. You all have the staff report and two attachments. Attachment one is this year's first quarter revenue expenditure. And then we also gave you last year's for comparison.
Yeah, I don't think I have that.
That was very helpful, Henry.
It was in the packet, just sequentially after the one, but I can also share my screen and you can see that. But before we get to that, I made a PowerPoint to sort of guide us through the existing. So I was going to share my screen with that presentation, and then I can share my screen and we can look at the actual spreadsheets, and then we will have that will inform the discussion. All right, is that okay? Yes?
Sounds good.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is the review of the library budget for fiscal year 2021 first quarter. So the report gives the year-to-date figures on the general fund and parcel tax for the current fiscal year. As the date of this report, the end of the first quarter, 25% of the year has elapsed. The overall activity of combined measure D and general fund is a combined 26.29% expended. The general fund expenditures ended at 30.3% and partial tax at 16% of budget. Compared to last year, the general fund at this time was 27.93 and partial tax was 25.08. and the combined for last year was 27 as compared to 26 point something this year. Just some highlights. As far as revenue is concerned, the general fund provides approximately 70% of the library's total operations budget. Our revenue portion for this year is estimated at 18,581. This includes a contribution amount from the Friends of the Library, which we had estimated to be 10,000, but it's actually going to be more like 23,710, as indicated at the bottom with the asterisks. The parcel tax provides the remaining 29% of the library's total operations budget. That 1% difference is the Friends. And the revenue from the parcel tax is estimated to be $1,092,091. Expenditure highlights general fund. Everything has been affected by the shutdown ongoing and the sort of what the effects of that and the fact that the library is not fully open. Salaries and benefits are slightly lower because we have 6 open positions. We're underspent on building maintenance and PG&E.
Henry, are you taking questions?
Let's wait till the end, okay? So I can run through this and then we can refer to the report.
Okay.
A lot of expenditures for maintenance are due in the first quarter, so that is overspent. And the ongoing challenge of being overspent in contract services is again for this year because our MarinNet bill is due the first quarter. So we're 85% expended in the general fund on that. If without that expenditure, our percentage of the general fund expended for Q1 drops to 23%. You know, if you think of how it would look without that huge lump payment. And the combined expenditure drops to 21 if we were not to look at that single line item, a big one. Audio video is a little overspent because we didn't order anything for 4 months. So there was kind of an influx of back orders when we first started ordering in June. And then because of budget constraints where we've been being very conservative in spending, we're underspent in office supplies, periodicals, digital resources, professional dues and subscriptions, particularly because we're not going anywhere. So we often have professional dues paid up to get a discount for like conference attendance, which really isn't happening in person. And then credit card fees because we're just doing fewer transactions in terms of payments. As far as partial tax expenditures, we're underspent in the administrative fee to the county because we haven't been billed yet. We're underspent in programming supplies because we're not really doing physical programs, and that line item had sort of foreseen a physical programming budget. Books are underspent because we're still catching up, and we're trying not to spend as much ongoing and in expenditures generally, as there's a lot of sort of unknowns about the immediate financial future of the city. We have gotten rid of periodicals as that they serve an in-person clientele, and we foresaw that we could save a lot of money by not doing periodicals for the near future. So we've actually canceled most of those. And we, for digital resources, our billing on that is kind of spotty. So we haven't been billed for some of our annual services. And we plan to spend more technology money, but we're underspent on that as we have still some unknowns about how we're going to provide technology and computing in the library in the near future. And training and instruction is underspent. We're trying to send people to virtual trainings as much as possible. Many of them are free at a very reduced cost. So then there again, our training and instruction had kind of been sort of based upon a more of an in-person model, which really isn't happening right now. So here's the comments and questions section. And I was thinking I could stop sharing and bring up the spreadsheets that I alluded to, and then we can proceed with the questions. Does that work for everyone? I hear yes. Okay.
Henry,
Yeah.
before you do that, could you go back to your PowerPoint on the general fund? I got a couple questions on that one.
Okay.
On the regular hires and salaries and benefits, I did a quick calculation, and it's about 21% drop in salary and benefits for quarter to quarter. And how many full-time equivalents does that mean you've reduced?
So there's 6 open positions, 4 are full-time and 2 are half-time. So that's about 5 FTE for regular hire. And then we've also really scaled back on temp hires. So we did a quick calculation of what the FTE equivalent of the temp vacancies or the lack of using temporary hours is. And I came up with around 5 or 6 FTE equivalent. That's solely based on an hourly calculation sort of on the back of an envelope, but the official regular hire that we're working without is I think pretty much close to exactly 5 FTE, maybe give or take a percent, like a point, because some of those people are 0.533, so it could be 5.33.
Okay, and what was your reduction in hours of operation?
Well, so during the shutdown, we reduced to nothing. For this fiscal year, we started doing curbside June 3rd, which means everyone who's left in the library, regular hire, which is about 12 or 13 people, they're all working full time. That we're able to provide curbside at a reduced level from our hours of operation previously. So we're doing that 6 hours a day for 5 days a week for 6 days a week at downtown for 36 hours. And then at Pickleweed, we're doing 4 days a week, 6 hours a day for 24 hours. Our reduction in service is sort of directly related to the pandemic and not significantly related to our lack of staffing. And arguably, it would take fewer staff to just open the building and not provide curbside, but it's a heavily hands-on operation. So we're actually having regular hire people who would do a variety of tasks professionally, including ordering books, planning, administrating, supervising. They're also actually doing circulation the way, in some cases, the tasks that our library assistants or pages would be doing. So we're doing all of the temporary hire work as well as the librarian work. So, but yes, our hours of service are 30 hours downtown, 24 at Pickleweed per week.
30 hours downtown and how many at Pickleweed?
Oh wait, 6 times 6 is 36 downtown and 24 at Pickleweed.
24 PW, okay. Great, thank you.
Well,
Another question, my colleagues will permit me. Is it customary that you pay maintenance contracts on an annual basis and not on a monthly basis?
Ginger would have more insight into the exact billing cycle of maintenance. It depends. Some are quarterly. I think Matrix, the elevator people do a kind of quarterly billing cycle. It's often running a little behind.
Elevator, I'm not familiar with an elevator in either of the buildings.
Yeah, the Carnegie has an elevator, and then the HVAC. They're the kind of biggest expenditures one, I think.
All right. Well, thank you for that one. You still there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm back to the Marin net. The numbers and your point six, the sixth agenda item there, or the report on, has Marin net gone down substantially? Like you have done, and you have done a great job at the library, but it doesn't seem to me that Marin net has reduced significantly.
Yeah, almost, like not in any significant way. There's a little bit of savings in that we have consolidated some of our database packages that we save, but overall 75% of what we pay to MarinNet is staffing, and that has not reduced. And
then there's been no staffing reduction at MarinNet.
And for example, when March 17th rolled around and everyone was sort of gone virtual, MarinNet staff were deemed to be essential workers by the county because they run like servers and they all work at Los Gamos where the EOC is. So yeah, that we didn't get kind of any kind of savings from being closed for MarinNet, but I believe generally all the libraries besides the county who are funded by sales tax, particularly Sausalito, Larkspur, San Anselmo, and ourselves, have been experiencing sharp budget challenges. And there have been some savings at MarinNet, like we stopped getting EBSCO databases, which will allow us to kind of maybe moderate that cost, but not in a hugely significant way, again, because it's mostly overhead.
So is the volume handled by MarinNet reduced substantially or pretty much the same?
Well, there again, the volume in terms of the delivery, the delivery we saved on short term because, well, we have a contract with, like, in the same way that we have to pay the copy people because we have a contract, but the MarinNet staff in and of themselves it isn't really related to volume because they're more like technology support for the online catalog databases, the discovery layer, which is called BiblioCommons. So there wasn't any kind of reduction in that type of volume because it's mostly virtual, and instead there was huge increase for demand for virtual services during the shutdown, and that's kind of continued through the next this current fiscal year. Like many more people are using the digital services, and there's been a sharp increase in the use of ebooks, for example. Like August last year, ebooks were like 6,000 checkouts for San Rafael, and we're about like at 10,000 this August.
Good, servicing the community, perfect. That's my questions on the general fund expenditures.
I have a couple of questions on the curbside hours. Is that what you were giving, 36 hours that people can come and pick up their books from downtown and 24 at Pickaway?
Yes.
So in a sense, that's our open hours, I guess, 60.
I would agree to disagree. Those are the hours where the public has access, kind of access to the building. Mm-hmm. But the library since March has been providing services beyond the 8:30 to 5 o'clock on a daily basis. So virtual programs, zip books, reference, virtual chat, etc. I mean, they've all been working their regular shifts.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Sorry.
So yeah, is the public hours.
On that point, I don't think Pickleweed has ever been open 6 days a week.
No, only 5.
One more question. When you mentioned 6 open positions, I thought that was the positions that were lost because of everybody taking a cut.
Good question. No. There's in addition to there's various strategies to kind of reduce costs. One is the furlough, which means everyone who's working is getting 5% less than they were previously. And then a freeze in hiring means it's sort of like a game of musical chairs. If your chairs aren't full, they just don't get filled. So our musical chairs meant that we had many chairs open, they just don't get filled. So a hiring freeze is kind of a standard tactic. But yeah, it's both of those things. And then the hidden thing is that we, as an industry, we're kind of like McDonald's. We employ a large number of temporary workers because we're usually open 7 days a week, and we're using very few of those. I saw maybe did a question come in on the chat? Does that answer the question?
Okay, but so you mean there could be new people being hired, but it's all on different hourly amounts?
We have a limited number of hourly just to kind of reshelve books, and we brought back some bilingual people to support at Pickleweed and to a limited amount some DSW, disaster service worker functions, but in no way close to what we would usually do, which means that then all those physical tasks like librarians are all checking in books and shelving holds and circulating books and taking orders. They've kind of dropped a level, whereas like a whole nother, like temps and library assistants would normally do all that stuff. Mm. But the fact that we had been doing shared service desks before this kind of prepared our librarians in a nice kind of way to be able to do all that circulation stuff, because previously they wouldn't have really known how to. And for example, at the Bell Tib Library, where they have 4 times the funding per capita, their librarians aren't doing any circulation. Mm-hmm. So our people, hats off to them for being multi-talented. They're able to kind of be all things to all people, which is kind of the thing that we do.
Well, just to highlight the difference between last year at this time and this year at this time, right? Between the frozen positions that are full-time and some permanent part-time, and a lot of the temps, equates to $168,000 in savings in 1 quarter, in 3 months. That's how much less we're spending this year in 3 months than we did last year. So it's
very well done. Very well done, Susan. Same I came up with.
We don't have any really additional positions left. I mean, open then. It's just that people are being moved around and fitting.
Well, they're not really being moved, but there we have, I think, 3 librarians, a library assistant, and 3 library assistants, I think. I'd have to check. But we do have open positions that are frozen. And then the librarians are doing, everyone's doing additional work in addition to what they usually did. So it's not like they're being moved. It's just kind of like they're just trying to stay above water, kind of treading water.
Everyone's bailing the boat.
Right.
But those positions being filled are not built into the budget, right?
I didn't catch that about the positions.
When you say they're open positions, but they're frozen.
Yeah.
What's built into the budget is that they stay frozen.
The budget isn't really built yet, I would say.
Well, she's correct. So the adopted budget in July showed the frozen positions. They are unfunded. They're defunded. They're not gone for good. So what you're seeing in that reduction is not only money not spent on those positions. So I wasn't talking about, comparatively speaking, of what was budgeted versus what is spent. I'm talking about this year, what we've spent versus last year at this time. Between frozen positions obviously not being filled and not working, And the temp staff that we did not bring back, just so you all know, temp staff, when I say that, I'm talking about library pages and lifeguards and rec leaders, unless they were tied to an essential service and absolutely necessary. None of our temp staff have been employed since March. There's very few that have been brought back across the board. So it's not just the full-timers that aren't working, attributing to that savings. It's also not the same number of pages that we would normally have process the books and shelve them. Henry's right. It's full-time people. With minor exceptions, it's all full-time people doing all the work all the time.
But they're being furloughed partly.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I would love for you guys to come into the library sometime when they're doing curbside. It looks like an Amazon fulfillment center. They're all on every phone that they can get. They've got headsets on, they're taking orders, they're bagging, then they're running up and down stairs. I mean, it's something else. It's quite a workout.
So I have a couple of questions. One is, how is the staff coping with the changed circumstances?
Well, I think they've been pretty, they've been, given it's the pandemic, when we transitioned from virtual services to in-person, I think that we were many of the staff, if not most, were happy to come back and have something very tangible to keep them busy. As the pandemic kind of continues, I think people are a little bit tired. But they're being creative and trying to not only maintain the curbside, but think of things that that we can do to kind of augment those services. So we came up with putting books on display inside the windows so people could window shop. We also recognize that one of the services we provide in person is suggesting things for people to read. So Jill Harris created an online form for people to submit personal reading recommendation requests. So we'll like give you a list of books that you might want to check out after kind of you filling out a form. But I think that, it's just kind of, in a certain sense, people are happy to be working, because for like small business owners and huge parts of the private sector, it's like very obvious that a lot of people are out of work. So we're hanging in there.
And the second question is, given the adaptations and things you've learned by this, do you anticipate that there will be some changes that stay or modifications that stay once we've left this crisis? I think I'm finding with a lot of the things that I work with that people are finding, for instance, you're here in Silicon Valley, fewer people feeling a need to go into work every day and more work from home in the future. I'm wondering if there's things that you've learned that might apply towards savings or efficiencies ongoing.
Well, I think, for example, this meeting and the public process taking place virtually is vastly more convenient for many people and more effective. And there is a video record that creates more transparency in government, which I think is awesome. The same can be said for many of our traditional and most popular programs like story time and book clubs. They become somewhat more accessible to a larger swath of the public, though somewhat less personal when they're provided virtually, and then there's like a Facebook Live or some other type of archive for that experience that can live on and be enjoyed by repeated views of it. So I think that's been very productive and something we discovered we're really good at. Also, the fact that we have the chat service has been a great augmentation, and as kind of the use of it has quadrupled, possibly by 5 times, maybe even. And that I think is becoming more of a standard where we can kind of, have more ways to interact with people. So those are the top ones.
I would say also, just to add, staff, when they had the time, were able to participate in a lot of trainings and educational opportunities, because there was we really didn't have to worry about a travel budget. We didn't have to spend money on flying people or hotels or anything. So the amount of people that could participate in educational opportunities because they moved to a virtual platform really was amazing. And then lastly, I think from an outside perspective, which I still feel I have, it was very obvious to all of us as we went through it on both sides of the department. We all think that we know what the priorities of our customers are. Well, when you shut everything down and you start to slightly reopen, it's very apparent. It was very apparent to Henry and I what the first thing that people wanted was access to materials, period. The other areas that they miss are, the family story times, the children's programs, but by and far and large was the access to circulation materials. And then I would say trailing is personal computing. So it has definitely helped us kind of really refocus all of our programs and where we're going to be going in the future of this is the most important thing that we do. And sometimes we assume we know that, but it's evident when you take everything away. What is the first thing is that everybody wanted back was, curbside, which has been hugely successful.
That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm very proud of Henry and his staff.
And just to follow up on what Susan said of the personal computing, I think when we do, and we first started trying to provide that at Pickleweed in the lab today, but the internet at the entire center was down, so we couldn't do that. And so when we do bring that back, it's going to be on a more sort of efficient basis, whereas I think our system before was a little bit sort of overbuilt in a way. We're thinking up ways to kind of do that more efficiently. For example, for our OPAC computers that are just used to look up books, we're going to try using Raspberry Pis. We had 2 of those at downtown, and seeing if we could make that a standard to pay that much less for that type of station, and then concentrate more on a sort of Chromebook approach where we can provide people with a sort of flexible way to use the computers rather than the traditional sort of serried workstations that no longer really work in a distance environment. So I'm really excited about kind of developing that more and kind of seeing that differently now.
Do a lot of the kids in the Pickleweed area have Chromebooks now because of the schools?
I'm not sure. Like
districts, they all have Chromebooks, so they can all do distance learning. Yeah,
the school is handing out Chromebooks and hotspots, and we've been working with SRCS to provide 150 hotspots. A number of them aren't being used, but we're not sure why. But I don't have any info on how many Chromebooks and how available they are. But I believe that they were trying to give everyone that needed a Chromebook. And so, yeah, I don't really have stats on that.
I think there's going to be a big difference in how this comes out once the pandemic's over. I mean, people are going to want to do a lot of distance things.
True.
May I ask another question?
Are you talking? Or can I speak?
Who's on first? Go ahead. You're the chairwoman.
No, I just want to say that, you know how we define essential workers, and of course that's public safety, and it's the other people who maintain the community, but the library is essential to the community in other ways, like mental health, staying in touch with people.
Sorry. We appreciate that, but I think when we define essential workers, honestly, Phyllis, that term has been redefined in the last 6 months many times. In the very beginning, it only referenced health and safety and, health and safety officers. But after that, it started to move. So essential workers then was redefined in May as any government employee because they do support emergency operation centers and serve as disaster service workers. So the library, rec, planning, all of them came back to, you know, can be considered essential. But in the very beginning, it was only the medical field, fire, and PD from a statewide perspective. And then it changed quickly.
Okay, my question, one more question, kids. Digital services, Henry?
Yes.
Last year, we had 56,000, few $100, and this year it's only 4,500. Have you reduced that or for our services or what we're supplying the operation with?
I'm looking at the spreadsheet here.
That's where I got that information. So, you know, check it out. I didn't know if you'd cut some kind of service or you're getting more efficient or perhaps we're under budgeted with that.
Yeah,
number.
we're I would say we're planning to spend all that money this year, but we don't spend like without checking with the finance director on any particular thing that's not like a fixed expense ongoing. A lot of digital services money had in the past, you know, we're going to be spending monthly for Hoopla because we you know, that's one of the services that's ongoing. So generally we're somewhat underspent because we've just been trying not to spend as much because we didn't really know where the wind, where things were going. Yeah.
Well, good work. Good work. It's prudent to be very conservative, I think, in these very difficult times.
And that's been difficult for me. And I thank you, Nadine and Susan, for helping me. Not like what, like my thing is, would my natural predilection might be slightly more like, because everything seems to be in demand digitally, that we should spend more, but because we don't really know what's going on with the overall picture, it's better to be conservative, and this money is actually not going to go away in terms of the Measure D money if we don't spend it immediately. So yes.
Right. Good, thank you.
Yeah, we've been extremely prudent. We're going in, as you all know, we have, there's a measure on the ballot in a couple of weeks, and whether that passes or doesn't will have significant impacts on the city. So depending on which way it goes, there's a possibility of further service reductions across the board because we've only reduced the budget in certain circumstances, but it's been very strategic, and city management has wanted, and the city council has wanted to wait to see whether Measure R passes as to whether or not further budget and staff reductions are necessary. So stay tuned for November 4th and see what happens the night before. But
is that just 50%? Is that one, does that pass with 50%? I think it is, right? So
yeah,
51.
50.01.
Yeah.
I'm sure we should pass then, right?
Well, you know, it's obviously it's something that we really can't discuss, but you know, I can tell you that if it does or if it doesn't, it will definitely have significant impacts. If it does pass, then very likely we're going to weather the storm really well. If it doesn't, further staff and service reductions are inevitable. Mm-hmm. And we're not just talking about the library, we're talking across the board. Sure. There's no way to avoid it. The city does not have enough reserves to carry us through kind of a significant budget reduction in economy for the amount of time that would be necessary without it. So keep your fingers crossed. It depends on which way you want it to go, but I can tell you which way I want it to go, but.
I'm sure.
So with regards to this quarterly report, the the previous meeting, we provided you the year-end report. At that time, it was an estimated because the year hadn't exactly closed. So we would be providing you with that, the official version of that. And if there's not any more comment on this, but then, and then for our next meeting, the item I think of most note would be the year-end report based upon that official year fiscal year 1920.
And that document is completed, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. I think there will be slight changes over the one that you received at the previous meeting, just because of some details in year-end closure that hadn't quite they hadn't been finalized. But there's no big surprises or anything.
And then some of the footnotes hadn't yet been updated when we saw it last time.
True.
The special funds.
So maybe that then looking forward to, generally we think about when the next meeting is going to be and what's going to be happening in that meeting. Agenda setting for the next meeting would be that final report and a discussion about that related to kind of what we're talking to today about this quarter's report. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think there'll be much to say with the final report.
Yeah.
Everybody did their best.
So what I can do is send out a doodle for the next meeting, probably early December.
We're not aiming. So, they're not really having the meetings. I mean, normally we had it for the meeting the second week of December.
Oh, okay, you're right. It's probably before early December, late November, let's say, because it's traditionally the report goes to council at the last meeting of December, but that's not required. It could actually go in January if we wanted.
Yeah, I would suggest that we ought to consider that.
Yeah, I asked the finance manager if that was okay last year, and she said yes. Another thing an FYI, just about the library and rec, we're going to be furloughed during the entire sort of holiday season. So we're all going to be not around like through the holiday week from that one holiday to that other holiday.
Or
in December.
Thanksgiving or Christmas. We'll get from Thanksgiving through Christmas.
No, but
yeah.
Sorry.
No, from Christmas through New Year's. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of periods. So City Hall will be closed November 9th through the 11th. Mm-hmm. So most of all city offices will be closed the 9th through the 11th of November. Then all city offices, again, this is not police and fire, will be closed November 23rd through the 27th. And then again from December 21st through January 1st. And it's all furlough related. A couple of those time periods have a holiday here and there, but for the majority of it, it's all furlough.
Could you do that one more time, Susan? 9 through 11 November.
That's right. 9th through the 11th of November.
Right.
So the first 2 days are furlough. The third day happens to be a holiday.
Okay.
The week of November 23rd, the first 3 days are furlough. The last 2 days, the 26th and 27th, are considered Thanksgiving holidays. So that whole
23, that's 11/23 to 27.
Correct. And then December 21st through
21
January 1st.
The 21st through January 1st?
Yep, December 21st through January 1st.
They're all furlough days?
Is that?
Without confusing you more, I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to try to be as clear as I can. The city adopted a furlough schedule of 13 days. They gave library and recreation the ability to flex that up during a time period we would expect less customer demand than the days that they were recommending. So some of these furlough days are City Hall, and some of them are just library and recreation, but in total, we will not be available during those days. The library will have limited services on November 9th and 10th. Those are the only 2 days I think that are the exception. We'll have limited services, but if you were to go to City Hall, they would be closed.
So furloughs means they don't get paid.
So the best way to explain it is we get 13 days off, and the trade was they took 5% off the top of our salary. So
annual salary, I mean.
Right. So what that means is instead of like when a furlough day happens, we get no money at the end of the day. What they do is that 13 days equates to 5% off the top of everyone's salary. They just take that off, and what they do in exchange to make it a little nicer is they gave us 13 days off in exchange for that money. So it's considered a furlough day.
So you don't have to work for days you're not paid, or for hours that you haven't been paid for.
Correct. So even though like we'll be off for 2 weeks, that doesn't mean we're going to go broke for those 2 weeks. It just means we better, you know, we got a lot, we get less money from the get-go. So that's how it's done. I know it's counterintuitive, but that's actually right.
Are they modifying the budget? Is Nadine modifying the budgets?
Yeah. Yes, going forward.
Fiscal. Yes.
Yes, so at mid-year, so I think they present the budget at mid-year, which is probably in January or February. You'll see a reduction in the budget. They already made one going into July. They anticipated this, so some of it was already accounted in reducing the budget.
So I'm looking at potential dates for the next meeting on my calendar, but I think it'd be best to send out a doodle.
Yeah.
Just so that we can all kind of consider that in a sort of.
No more questions. Where is she? Where's our chairwoman? Did she take a hike?
She's here.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like we have agreement. It's not an official like motion thing. So any more questions about the quarterly budget for the first quarter of 2021?
No.
And then there's no public here, so that we don't have to do that.
So are you aiming for the next meeting next month, or I guess next month?
How about, let me check in with Nadine about the timing for the end of the year report. And then with that information, I will send out a doodle with potential dates and a kind of plan to get the report done by the end of the year. I think last year, some new people worked on the report that didn't work on it the year before. So think about who wants to be the report writer people this year.
We don't have a lot to choose from, do we?
Yeah, we don't.
Give it to Mr. Pruitt.
Is there any prospect of filling back in the missing?
Yeah, I've been in correspondence with Lindsay about them doing a call for applicants. There actually was one scheduled right before this all happened in terms of virus, so sorry.
Okay.
But we'll let you know. You'll hear when that happens. I'll make sure everyone knows.
So maybe we'll see if the other guy will answer. Okay, so we adjourned then?
I think so. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Thanks,
Jinder.
everyone.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Phyllis.
Okay.
Good night, Susan.
Right.
All right.
Bye.
Night, boy.